Hey there. So I thought it'd be a good idea to do a video that's longer than my typical video, and I thought it'd be a good idea to speak a bit about owning this kind of a machine. To answer the question that's in the title of this video, was it worth paying 20K for a big CNC machine? Absolutely, it was. Best decision of my life, business decision. Totally worth it. I have no regrets. To begin with, I thought it would be good to just tell the story of how it was I came to acquire the machine, how I've been running it for the last 10 years or so, and then after that I'll go into more like what I think are some interesting things regarding some interesting questions you should ask yourself if you're thinking about purchasing this kind of machine. Okay, so here's the story. About 12 years ago, actually, I was working for this guy. He's called Axel Stab. He was at the time he was running this business, which is basically like, you could say, robotics, this kind of thing, the programming of stepper motors, and he had as this project he had made this machine, this enormous CNC machine. So I was helping him build this machine, but also build these other kind of machines that he was doing for various clients. You know, somebody would phone him up with a problem, and he would solve it with one of these machines. A lot of production and this kind of thing, and then he finished. He finally finished building this enormous CNC machine, and he didn't really want to keep it for himself. He was just like, you know, it's gonna take up too much space, whatever. Do you want to buy it? He turned around to me and said, "Do you want to have this machine? Do you want to buy it?" And I said, absolutely. You know, I'd love to buy the machine, but don't have that kind of money. 20K, like, it's a very good price, but don't have the money. And also, like, at the time, I was a freelancer. If I had gone to a bank, I'm pretty sure they would have laughed at me. You know, that I wouldn't have gotten that kind of credit, even though it's not a huge amount of money, just because I didn't have like a provable steady source of income. So he said, "Fine, no problem. You can just pay it off in installments. We'll do what's known here in Germany as a Mietkauf, which is so Miet is rent and Kauf is buy. So you pay it off in installments. That was the agreement. But also, like, if you realize after half of the time, you know, you've paid off 10,000 or 5,000 or whatever, and you realize you're not going to be able to pay the rest of the machine off, you're out of business, whatever, you move, then you're not saddled with the debt of paying off the rest of the machine. Yeah, the machine then is reverted back. The ownership of the machine goes back to the original seller. He gets the machine. I wouldn't have any debt. That was the agreement, and I thought that was really fair. At the end of the day, I think it took me 5 or 6 years to pay the whole machine off. That was a really good deal. Yeah, so that's how I came about to acquire this machine. Now, at the time, as I said, I'd been working as a freelancer, but I also I was keen on purchasing the machine simply because, like, I had had experience running this kind of machine. Yeah. So when I was 16, 17, in the middle of the 90s, when I was in high school in America, I had run this kind of machine as, let's just call it a summer job. I'd run this kind of machine, actually a couple of these machines, which were, I believe they had been purchased in the 80s or so. These were huge machines too. And so I had this experience running these kind of machines. I knew how to do it. On the one hand, on the other hand, also I knew like the capabilities of these kind of machines, like what they're really. They have enormous capabilities, yeah. And this is the other thing, right? So at the time, okay, this was the 90s, but if you know, like I said, these machines had been bought in the 80s. These machines cost so much money back then. You know, you're talking like $500,000 easily for this a machine with these kind of capabilities. So you know, 10, 12 years ago, getting this kind of machine for 20K was a steal, I thought. Now you can get even better machines for less than this. You know, from China, but these are still really good machines. So I think that's an aspect which hasn't been talked about much. You know, that it's if you ask me, it's comparable. It's not the same. You know, it's not the same as with Moore's law regarding computers, but it's similar. You have these incredible machines. You know, the 3D printer has been hyped in the last 10 years, really overhyped, and nobody's as far as the general public is concerned, nobody's talking about CNC. I guess because it's like it's not sexy, or I don't know. It's not that easy to explain. But these machines have been quietly revolutionizing manufacturing for the last 30, 40 years. You know, very similar story with laser cutting too. You know, the capabilities of to be able to cut stainless steel with light. That's crazy, and to my mind also just far more interesting than 3D printing. But that's another thing. That's another story. Anyways, so that's how I got the machine, and I also, like I said, like I knew coming into it, I knew about the capabilities. I knew how to run this machine. A lot of it also, like I was learning on the job too. So I bought the machine, and immediately there were problems. Okay, when we had been finishing it off, we had forgot to put in these parts on the rails that they just seal up these holes on the rails where the screws are holding the rails onto the machine. And if you don't put in these plastic plugs on the rails, then the part that is greasing the shoe that rides on the rail, all the grease goes into these holes, and it dries out far too fast. Like it runs out of grease, and then the machine starts seizing up, and that's what happened. Like within the first 6 months, this happened, and I was like, "What the fuck? This machine isn't like it's messing up." And then fortunately, I was able to figure that out fairly soon and fix it. And which has also been the story of this machine. Like it's had issues, right? It's not a perfect machine, but the good thing has been, like from the get-go, I knew this man who had built the machine, and he really knows his shit. You know, even though he didn't build this perfect machine, I could phone him up, and if push comes to shove, you know, he would actually show up and help me. But most of the time, I think almost all the time, he could just talk me through fixing the machine myself, which is ideal, you know, because otherwise, if you're stuck with trying to get this expert, typically from a different city, from a different part of the country, you know, you're having an expert come in for a day or 2 days or whatever, and it's super expensive. Obviously, it's an expert, you know, to fix your machine. So my experience with this machine has been positive, insofar as like I've really had to go to school about these machines, and I'm not like this technical kind of guy. My brother's much more this kind. He loves taking apart his car and putting it back together again. That's not me. but still, like I'm more the artist kind of guy. Like I don't, a lot of the times I'm not so interested in how things work. I do like certain things, certain machines that I can understand easily, but if it gets too complex, I'm fine with not understanding it. Yeah. But with this machine, I've gotten to a place where I'm also perfectly comfortable taking the whole thing apart to move it and then putting it back together again in a new space. So what else was that? So yeah, okay. So that's the other thing. That's the other actually positive thing with this machine. Okay, it's built as a you could say almost like Lego. It's been put together with using these aluminum profiles, which are screwed together, and so I can take it apart and I can actually move the whole machine through a normal size 80 centimeter wide door. Yeah, I don't need. Typically with these machines, these enormous machines, like you need a garage door to get them in or out of a room, right? You can't take them through a normal sized door, and that can be a problem, you know. Like I know this one company, they're colleagues of mine. You could say they're competition. They bought this enormous machine, and to get it into the new space they were moving into, they had to take out this whole window. All right, I think just removing the window and putting it back in once the machine was in, that cost them $5K alone. They had to get a crane to get it through the window, you know, another thousands and thousands of euros just to move the machine into the room. Okay, then the machine had these issues. Okay, the machine didn't work, but they were stuck with it because they were, you know, the cost of moving it out again would have been enormous. And at the end of the day, they you know, for years and years it was in the shop and it wasn't working, and then they ended up, like, these Russians came and chopped it up with angle grinders and took it out in pieces. You know, that was a really rough story. But I think one of the issues with these bigger machines is really, especially if you're in a city like I am. I live in Berlin, Germany. Then real estate is obviously, rent is much higher than if you're living outside a city in a country or in a smaller city, if you will. So it can be hard finding the right kind of space, and that's one thing a machine of this size needs. Like, it has a big footprint, it needs a space. It has to be. It can't just be any space. Like, it's loud, right? A machine like this is loud. That's been a big issue for me. Space. Like the first place I was in, it was one of the first co-working spaces here in Berlin, called Beta House, and so when I signed the agreement to purchase the machine, it was in this super small room, very similar to the room I'm in right now, which is on the other side of town. But it was in this very small room. I think it was not even 20 square meters, like 19 and a half square meters. Okay, and Beta House had come to the decision they wanted to use the small room which I was in as a kitchen. They wanted to start having a kitchen, serving lunch at this co-working space. So they kicked me out, and I didn't even have the original rental agreement. Anyway, they were in their rights to kick me out. They kicked me out. I moved across the street into this carpentry. I made this. So I subletted part of a carpentry to have my machine in there, which was a really interesting experience. Let's put it that way. I learned a lot from this carpenter who was working there for the guy who owned the space. There was a really great carpenter who was working there, and he was able to teach me a lot about, like, just general carpentry. Like, growing up, I had access to wood tools and carpentry tools. I'd never been super into it. Like, my father, he worked as a bricklayer most of my life as a kid, although he had learned agriculture, and that was more something something I enjoy more is working with stone, pottery, this kind of thing. So sharing the space of this carpentry and getting more into like the real woodworking, not just plywood, but working with oak, working with solid woods. That was super interesting and a lot of fun, and I've gotten more and more into it over the years. I've even bought a lathe. I think 4 years ago or something, I bought a lathe, which you know, again, like you get deeper and deeper into the your understanding of wood, of the different kinds of wood, et cetera, grows the more and more you work with it, and that was kind of the jumping off point for me. But I wasn't in the carpentry for long either. I think the guy kicked me out mostly because I was earning more than him. He said the machine was too loud, which is crazy. It's a carpentry, like, you know, there's a table saw right next to this machine. That was just an excuse. But fine, he kicked me out. I moved into within the house I was in. I just moved downstairs into another space which is empty. Another sub-rental agreement, which is not optimal, because, you know, then you can get kicked out easily. and I was subletting from, at the time I was subletting from Modular, and they kicked me out to store tabletops after I think another 2 years or something, and then I moved into Motion Lab, and I was there until the person I was renting the space from there, he wanted to speculate on like building apartments for hipsters, you know, and then this industrial hall that we had been sharing, like I had the corner of the hallway that was empty for a year, and then he brought people back in for the same purpose. Like he just kicked us out on a whim, you know. It wasn't as if he had found someone else to replace us or anything. You know, if you can afford to be an asshole, then it seems as if that's really worth it for some people. And then after that, I put my machine in storage because I couldn't find the ideal space. And that's how I got into YouTube a lot more, because I just had more time. I wasn't running this business all the time, which is when I then found this space, which I'm in now, and when I moved into this space, I rebuilt my machine in a different way. So I moved the front of the machine about 12 inches, 12 inches backwards, so I could fasten material vertically onto the machine, which is good for joinery. And the first YouTube shorts that kind of really went viral of mine, they were about this joinery that I was doing on this adapted machine, right? And okay, so that's more, you know, in 5 or 6 minutes, that's the kind of the story of how I acquired the machine, and the various spaces I've been in over the last 10, 12 years. So I think I came up with like 3 different points that are important if you want to own this kind of machine, okay? Point number 1, like, do you understand, are you comfortable with running this kind of machine? Point number 2, like, where are you going to use this machine, like the space you're in? And then point number 3, like, how are you going to make the money? Okay, so with regards to the first issue, like I talked about why this has worked for me, right? I had experience with this machine years earlier, so I knew what I was getting into right away. I think for people who have never had experience with this kind of machine, there are 2 options, right? You could buy a small machine to begin with, and you can get these machines for for well under $1,000, right? And it's the same machine, it's just really small. It doesn't have, obviously it doesn't have the same capabilities. It can only do small work, but it's the same kind of a machine. And I think if you run a small machine like that and you're comfortable with it and you have this understanding of how this machine works and what you can do with it, then buying a big machine would be fine. The other option would be, option number 2 would be like, do you know someone who could run this kind of machine for you? That would also be fine. But just going into it without having ever had experience with this kind of machine, well, you know, I mean, maybe if you watch all these YouTube videos and you're like, yeah, I can do this, fine. But a CNC machine is very, very different from a traditional, from a table saw or a bandsaw or a planer, or these kind of machines. Yeah, it's very different. You have to work much more with a computer, although if that runs well, like the software I use is VCarve, it's great, and I don't spend much time on a computer, but that's essential. Like you have to have these vector files that you're using to tell the machine what to do, essentially. And if that's something you really don't want to do, or you don't think you can learn, or whatever, it's important to understand that, I think. Okay, like as far as space is concerned, like that's important, especially with these bigger machines, like I was saying. Like if you're getting this kind of bigger machine, then either you're going to need like garage doors to get it into the shop or something similar, or there are these CNC machines like the one I have. It's a one-off, right? I can't say, oh yeah, follow the link and go and buy this machine. But I know there's an American company. If I can remember which company this is, I can put a link in the description. There's definitely an American company which sells CNC machines, which come in pieces and you can put together fairly simply, fairly straightforwardly, and that's a good option if you have a space which makes it hard for you to kind of wheel the whole machine in one piece into the door. And also if you're worried about having to move into a space, you know, that doesn't have these options later on too, right? That gives you options down the road, which is always good. Okay. Brings us to point number 3. How are you going to use the machine to earn money? A lot of the videos on YouTube I've seen are people who are, generally speaking, like in the business of cabinetry in America, and they'll get these machines, and the CNC is great for this kind of work. So they already have the business, and the machine is just making their business more efficient. It's saving them a lot of money, cutting doors, cutting all these cabinetry parts, right? What I've been doing is finding business through Google, right? So I have all these different people coming to me with stuff they need done, and there are kind of two areas which I've become specialized in, and that is so art production and working with solid wood, because typically the larger machines will use like a vacuum bed for flat material, so MDF, plywood, plexiglass, this kind of material. It can be held down with a vacuum table, and then you can cut it, right? If you're cutting solid wood, that's just not so easy, because solid wood typically, well, solid wood isn't, it doesn't come in sheets, it comes in planks, and it likes to warp, right? So holding it down with a vacuum table mostly just doesn't work, unless you have a very, very, specifically made jig, which is just the size of the part you're cutting out, and then it holds it down, and then you cut around the jig, right? That's a very special setup. So I found if people are looking to have solid wooden parts cut, then very often I'm the only one making a quote for them, which means it's the profit margin is better for me. You know, I'm not competing. It's not super competitive on the price, which is great. I like that. So those are the two kind of things I've started to specialize in over the years. Which brings me to another aspect of how I think it's how I think it's good to, or advice I would give how to become successful with the CNC is maybe as with anything is to, if you can find this area that you can specialize in that can give you leverage. I think I have a friend who also has a CNC. It's about half the size of my machine, and he just does model making, right? And he's that's what he uses his CNC for. But actually, with the model making, I think that, like, the CNC work is probably a quarter of the work he's doing, maybe less, maybe only 10%, and then he's working with his hands. He's like, there's a lot of other work, but he's really world class. Like the models he makes, the architects come back to him. They really like the quality that he delivers. So that's kind of like his speciality, and obviously he really needs a CNC for this kind of work. Like the parts that he cuts out have to be exactly right, but he's using it for something which is similar, but actually very different from what I'm doing. For example, right? It's this thing he's specialized in, and he's really good at it, and I think that's helpful. On the other hand, I've found the other thing that's been helpful to me is to just say yes more. You know, like people come with these projects where I really have to scratch my head and say, well, hang on, like, I think I can do that. Let me give it a try. If I can do that, then, you know, I can give you a quote of what doing these 100 pieces of this certain part would be. At the moment, like, I've this is actually in some of the most recent short videos I've been uploading. Like, there's this guy, this older Turkish chap who lives here in Berlin, and he's come with these instrument parts he wants me to make, right? And it's super interesting. It's something I've never done before. You know, for example, working with boxwood. Like I'd heard of boxwood, but I've never used it before. It's this incredibly hard, dense, super fine grained wood, comparable only to ebony, yeah, really. It's difficult. Like one day he came to me, kind of unannounced, and he had this beautiful, this really beautiful custom-made guitar out of palisandeau, so rosewood guitar, and he wanted me to make these, to cut out these two parts in the body of it was an acoustic guitar, not an electric guitar, yeah. And in the body of the car, he wanted me to do these two parts for the mother of pearl inlay that he wanted to put in the guitar. Oh God! And so I had to really. First of all, I was just like, well, not today, you know. I've got all this other stuff I have to do. But then I also realized, like, I did have enough time on that day, and also, like, it was fine. I had lunch first. Yeah, I had lunch first, kind of took a deep breath, and then we did it, and nothing went wrong. Because I was really worried about, really obviously worried about, you know, fucking up his it was like a $15,000 guitar, you know, custom made. Really beautiful guitar, and if I would have gone too deep or whatever, it's over. Like I would have ruined the guitar. Um, but all was well, and he was happy, and I was I was happy that it was over. Like, I didn't fuck up the guitar, but it was also fun, you know. Like I said, like if you can, so on the one hand specialize, on the other hand say yes, you know, and the customers I've found through Google, the customers that are coming to me, it's really interesting, the stuff they'll bring, like all these different projects they have. That's a lot of fun, actually. I've done this, for example, another art production project I did was this enormous chessboard. It was almost exactly 1 meter by 1 meter, like a huge chessboard, also with mother of pearl inlay on the squares of the chessboard. On the outside, it was supposed to look like this flowery kind of fiery veneer inlay with all these different colors of wood. I was working on that for like 2 months, and it was this exhibit for this, actually in France, and worldwide fairly famous artist Sebs, and he was exhibiting this chessboard in the keep of this castle, a medieval castle so like, I don't know, 800 years ago, whenever one of the French kings had actually lived in the keep because he was so afraid of the mob coming to get him, right? So and my chessboard, the one I had made for this artist, was displayed like on a table in the keep of this castle. Really cool, really great project. A lot of fun, just a one-off thing, but lots and lots of fun. Yeah, so that's the story of my machine, getting the machine. Was it worth it? Yes, absolutely worth it. I came across a video recently which I thought was very good, where this American woodworker went into the extra costs of acquiring a CNC. He was talking about like the cost of a vacuum pump, of the dust extraction, of the compressed air. Like, first of all, like I don't have a vacuum pump or compressed air for running my machine, because I don't use that, right, on my machine. I just use screws to hold down the material. But what he did, I thought the video was very good, because he goes through all of these extra costs that come along with buying a machine, and also, like, he has 2 machines, so he goes into the extra cost of the one machine, the other machine, which is very. I think the video is really good. I'm going to link to that in the description of my video, because I thought it was really good. It also goes into the fact that, like, if you buy a more expensive machine, then the extra costs will be even higher than the simpler, more simpler machines, because like I said, with my machine, a lot of what I do, I really like to keep it simple, and to keep the because to my mind, like, if there's less, if a machine is less complicated, then it doesn't, then it's less likely to break down, which like, if you have a broken machine, you can't earn money with it. So that can be a real drag. Yeah. So that's it. One more thing. If you have questions you would like me to answer specifically about CNC and this kind of woodworking, please put them in the comments. It would be good to know about that. I'm planning on doing another video which is more about running the business of a CNC over the years. A video similar to this, like longer than my videos typically are. But like I said, I'd love to hear any of your questions, so then I can think about doing other videos like this where I'm just, just a talking head.